Indian and Chinese troops have disengaged at the Galwan Valley area where they had earlier clashed on the night of 15th and 16th June 2020. 17 Indian troops who were critically injured in the line of duty at the stand-up location and exposed to sub-zero temperature in the high altitude terrain have succumbed into their injuries, taking to the total that they were killed in the action of 20. The army said in its official statement. Now, what is the actual issue and what are the ground realities? The account by retired colonel of Indian Army and Indian journalist Ajay Shukla is one of the reliable person in current time. As I don't have any expertise in defense and border issue, in today's show I am going to present Ajay Shukla's view. He wrote in his blog posted on yesterday on ajayshukla.blogspot.com. Tension between India and Chinese troops have simmered since early May in remote Karakoram mountains that separate India's northern Ladakh region from the alpine desert of Chin, a disputed area claimed by India but controlled by China and abuts its Xinjiang province. It is a forbidding landscape of cold desert, snow-cropped peaks, sparse vegetation and freezing temperature about 14,000 feet above sea level. On Monday evening, in a brutal hand-to-hand fight, Chinese soldiers killed at least 20 Indian soldiers with wooden stave and nail stub clubs. In the severe escalation of the dispute in Sino-Indian frontier in decades, British colonial authorities breastwheat India a border with China that was neither delineated on a map nor demarcated on the ground. After China's invaded by Tibet in 1950 and the two Asian giants sought to formalize their frontier, the territorial dispute emerged. The Sino-Indian border dispute involves about 13,500 square miles in Ladakh and Chin, and about 35,000 square miles in northeastern Indian state of Arunachal Pradesh, which China calls Tibet, South Tibet. In 1962, the border dispute flared into a war. China was conclusively but retreated after a ceasefire to what were broadly in a pre-war position. That de facto border, which called a line of actual country, it means LAC, is patrolled by both armies. Occasional unarmed clashes have taken place over the year despite 5 arrangements aimed by reducing risk of combat. China has built a network of roads, tracks on its in the sides of line of actual control. It is LAC. But the Chinese military have consistently objected to India's far slower but steady improvement of the borderland infrastructure. One of the key Indian project is the construction of Debruk Shiong Daulat Begi Old Road in Ladakh, cutting through treacherous mountain ridges at a high as in 16,000 feet. The road runs almost parallel to the disputed border with Chinese control Chin and reaches to Daulat Beg Oldie, an Indian military base and landing of ground to the Indian Air Force about 12 miles from the Karakoram Pass, which separated Ladakh from China Jiang. The road, which includes 37 bridges built over snow-fed rivers, took 90 years to construct. For one single bridge, it is 90 years to construct, providing India the ability to move its troops at much greater speed towards Chin and Karakoram Pass. On October 21, India's Defense Minister Rajnath Singh inaugurated a major bridge road on same, which made it completely operational even the summer melt when the rivers are in spate. China saw the road as a reducing power asymmetry between two countries and threatening its interest. 2.5 months earlier, an aggressive political move flaunting the muscular nationalism of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, New India, had not gone unnoticed in Beijing. What is this? On August 5, Mr. Modi government unilaterally abolished the constitutionally guaranteed semi-autonomous status of the northern state of Jammu and Kashmir, which is disputed among India, Pakistan and China. Mr. Modi also bifurcated the erstwhile disputed state into two federally administered territories, it is Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. India's Home Minister Mr. Modi's confidant Amit Shah instead of Indian Parliament that both Pakistani-controlled Kashmir and Chinese-controlled Aksai Chin belong to India. Hua Chang, a spokesperson of China's Foreign Affairs Ministry, described Mr. Modi's move as undermining China's territorial sovereignty, described it as inclusion of Chinese territory into Indian administrative jurisdiction and warned such a practice is unacceptable and will not come into force. New Delhi ignored it. In November, the Survey of India, the Cartography Department of the Indian government, published new maps of Ladakh and Jammu and Kashmir. The new official map continued the tradition of the Indian claim on Aksai Chin by placing it with the boundary of Ladakh. In the high altitudes around the disputed India-China border in Ladakh region, the bitter winter stretches till April to even May. In between, the coronavirus pandemic took over all over the world, but Beijing had neither forgotten or nor forgotten. Between May and June, the Chinese military seized about 40 square miles Indian territory. 40 square miles of Indian territory. Got it? Including an area known as a Galwan River Valley. The high ridges of Galwan Valley overlook the strategic Darbyuk-Siang Daulat Beg Oldie, that is same road leading towards the Aksai Chin and Karakoram Pass. The seizure of Galwan River Valley allows the Chinese army watch the road and when the necessary bring down artillery fire to procedure it use, rendering a significant strategic asset inoperative. India protested. On June 6, Indian and Chinese military officers started talks to de-escalate the crisis. The Chinese agreed to vacate some positions. On June 15 evening, an Indian army patrol set out to verify whether the Chinese have withdrawn from position or Indian side of line of actual contact. It is LAC. According to Indian officials, the Chinese had not withdrawn as agreed as several hundred Chinese soldiers ambushed the Indian patrol. The Chinese claimed they were on their own side of LAC control when the Indian soldier crossed over and attacked them. While both Indian and Chinese soldiers carry weapons when they patrol the border, it has been long-standing practice. In accordance with an agreement signed by the two countries in 1996 and 2005 not to use firearms during the patrol clashes, brutal hands-to-hands fighting followed in which the Chinese killed at least 20 Indian soldiers with wooden staves and nail-stubbed clubs, pushing some wounded over the steep cliffs overlooking the Galwan River. Beijing has admitted that there were Chinese casualties but not given any details, possibly to avoid inflaming the situation further. New Delhi has not officially claimed any account of Chinese casualties either, but the Indian press and social media claims with no evidence that 43 Chinese soldiers were killed. A shocked and stunned New Delhi took a full day to release a statement acknowledging the debacle. In sharp contrast to the bellicose Indian statement that follows attack by Pakistani militants, the Indian government reaction was mild, almost careful not to offend China. Only on Wednesday did Mr. Modi discover his voice and declare that peace-loving India would ensure the death of its soldier would not give in a van. India's foreign minister, who rarely hold back in rallying protest against Pakistan, was restrained in his criticism of China's action and agreed with his Chinese counterpart to cool down tension on the ground as soon as possible. The reasoning was underlined by Raju Pratap Rudy, a spokesperson of Mr. Modi's party, who argued on television that confrontation was with China, not with Pakistan. with China not stepping back from the territory it has captured, and the death of Indian soldier. India's beleaguered position parties are cornering with the government and asking, can Mr. Modi, who makes political capital out of his muscularity in dealing with Pakistan, adopt an entirely different set of standards to dealing with China? Over the year, Mr. Modi has invested a great deal of personal and political capital into building a relationship with the Chinese President Xi Jinping, whom he hosted in his hometown Ahmedabad during the state visit in 2014. Mr. Modi also set up India as a soft target, though his pusillanimous handling of an earlier border crisis in 2017 at Doklam. At the disputed tri-junction of the China, India and Bhutan, this ended without bloodshed after 73-day eyeball-to-eyeball confrontation between Chinese troops and the Indian army. New Delhi was content with the taking political credit for resolving the Doklam crisis peaceably, but the Chinese military violated the mutual withdrawal by sending back troops and equipment back into a disputed area. Mr. Modi government chose to do nothing about remilitarization of Doklam by the Chinese military. Beijing could have draw a lesson from it, seize disputed territory at multiple points, withdraw from a few places, and let New Delhi claim that as a victory. After the Doklam crisis, Mr. Modi met to Xi twice in Wuhan 2018 and India last year. Mr. Modi held both summits as a harbingers of a new strategic convergence with the China. The Wuhan summit particularly had a significant outcome that were described as a building of consequence between two sides of to deal with border tension. New Delhi's diplomatic behavior has been thoroughly subsequent with China since Wuhan summit, with no significant criticism of China or Taiwan, Hong Kong, COVID-19 and Mr. Xi's ambitious Belt and Road Initiative. India's opposition parties are portraying Mr. Modi's embrace of Mr. Xi as a grave misjudgment, as same like Nehru's. The outrage over the killing of India's soldier leaves Mr. Modi's strongman image detained and confronts with the difficult choice of appearing to stand up to the China's while prevailing a full-scale war. Mr. Modi party has responded by aggressively arguing that the fallen Indian soldiers were killed 43 Chinese soldiers despite absence of any proof. For Mr. Xi, the agreement reached with the Mr. Modi at Wuhan in 2018 to rein in their troops and to resolve border tension through peaceful negotiations seems to have been clearly expandable. The Chinese president image has been detained by his handling of COVID-19 pandemic outbreak. The setback in Taiwan, where heavy-handed pressure and subliminal military threats resulted the re-election of anti-unification president Tsai Ing and Beijing failure to clamp down on anti-China protest on continuing rolling Hong Kong. Given China's growing incursion in Senkaku Island claimed by both Beijing and Tokyo, its ever increasing assertiveness in the South China Sea and the passage of new security law in Hong Kong. Mr. Xi would not have much sleep over violating the 5 border agreement signed with India between 1993 and 2013. Some analysts believe that just as Mao Zedong strengthened his control over China by going to war with India in 1962, Mr. Xi is burnishing his strongman image by slapping down India that growing uncomfortably close to United States. Mr. Modi, his China policy in tatters confronts the question, should New Delhi accept assistance from Washington to handle the crisis? Since May, American political officials have communicated Washington's support to New Delhi repeatedly. But Mr. Modi has replied that India is capable handling the situation and the diplomatic and intelligence support from Washington would suffice. Mr. Modi rightly apprehends that Beijing would regard as anti-China any overt Indian embrace of US or strengthening of New Delhi's ties with the Quad. The diplomatic grouping of the US, Japan and Australian India. For the Sino-Indian border, the current tension have destroyed the existing playbook which had maintained peace since 1993, when the two sides signed the border peace and tranquility agreement. If China withdraws from the Indian claimed territory it has occupied, the two sides could negotiate new border agreement and operating procedures. But if China holds on to what it has gained, India would most certainly shift more overtly towards Washington. That is for today. We'll meet on next episode. Thank you.
Subscribe now and press the bell icon. Never miss an update.